muy malo. Roto el pato de vestuario. La interpretación siempre negativa. Siempre negativa. Nunca positiva.
Hello and welcome back to Siempre Positivo for the new La Liga season with me, Rik Sam, and Sam Marsden today. Unfortunately, our finances meant that we were not able to get Toni registered to participate in the first pod of the season. Disgrace, no?
Yeah, Toni not registered. Either that or he's just been on like a 3-month binge of holidays since leaving Diario Sport. But sources connected to Toni have told me that he's currently in Norway considering his future, and he'll be back next week ready to go for the season and knuckle down and look for a job, because his own finances only stretched so far, and you can't just spend all your time on holiday, can you?
Yeah. I'm surprised Toni's finances have stretched to 3 months of holiday, to be honest.
Yeah, to be fair, a lot of the holidays are at a family home on, is it Menorca or Mallorca? One of the islands. I think it's Menorca, not Mallorca.
Yeah, Mallorca.
So cheap holidays, cheap flights probably to Menorca, and maybe using his whaling trick, which he used that time with you, where he jumps on at the end, and then nice costless accommodation.
Yeah. All right, we're here today to talk about Barcelona's 3-0 win over Mallorca at Son Moy, the first win of the season as they began their title defence. But there was somebody else who didn't seem particularly happy to be back from holiday, in coach Hansi Flick, who said that the 3-0 win was not good enough.
I know it's not easy normally with 2 goals in front and 2 players less for the opponent. It's not easy, but we have to play better, faster, and of course the opponent Mallorca played very in the defense very deep, so it's not so many space there. But at the end we have 3 points. 3 points. We are happy, but I know also that we have to work on some situations, what we have to make better. And also, how I said before, we only, I think I had the feeling that we play by 50%, 60%, and it's not enough. It's not enough. I want to have my team with another attitude. So
yeah, do you think he's right, Sam, about that?
It's a difficult one. I think in general, I think his point is right. I think there's kind of other elements at play with the fact that this was the first game of the season. The players are, they're off the back of pre-season. You're probably thinking once you're down facing 9 men, subconsciously, it's hot. I saw a story today saying it's the hottest game Barcelona have ever played. I'm not quite sure what the temperatures were. I know obviously there's a heat wave across Europe at the moment. Forest fires in Spain, etc. They're on the island of Mallorca. And it was played at 7:30, the kickoff was, as opposed to the actual really, really late kickoff, the 9:30 one. So temperatures were even higher. So you've got that to factor in. I mean, once you're up against 9 men, first game of the season, you're on the back of pre-season, you're thinking we've got a long season ahead. You probably subconsciously think we can take the foot off the gas here. I also wonder sometimes if, how much players consider, I don't know if they're considering, do we really want to go all out and roast 9 men? It's a little bit not much of a challenge. So maybe those things were at play, but Flick certainly didn't see that way. He said Barca were at 50 or 60% once Mallorca went down to 9 men, as we just heard. And yeah, he wasn't very happy. I can understand him. You do need that intensity. You do need to. We saw with Barca last season, once they dropped those levels, famously in that second half against Espanyol when they started the season so well, the week after the Clásico, they dropped those levels a little bit against Espanyol when they were 3-0 up. And whether it was just to do with that or different reasons, fatigue or the injury to Lamine Yamal, they did struggle to get it back in the coming weeks. So I do agree with the fact that you need to be sort of intense all the time to maintain that game by game. But I do think, and maybe this is why Flick's a leading manager and I'm not that I've ever tried to be, that Perhaps he is right. Perhaps you do need to keep your foot on the gas all the time. But I certainly thought at 2-0 I didn't see Barca going on to win the game 6-7-0 because of the reasons I explained, the temperatures and the fact it was the first game of the season especially.
Yeah. Just to give a quick recap of what happened in case anybody didn't see it. Rafinha opened the scoring after 7 minutes, set up with a lovely cross by Lamine Yamal, of course. Second goal came in somewhat controversial fashion as Ferran Torres blasted home from the edge of the box after Raillo had blocked a Lamine shot and gone down and was on the floor holding his head. And Mallorca were very angry that the goal was allowed to stand. Then Mallorca had 2 players sent off, Morlanes and Mariki. inside the first half, and then from there, Barca made a host of substitutions in the second half. Dani Olmo came on for Firmino at half-time. Joffrey Torrents came on. Gavi. Rashford came on for his La Liga debut. Jules Koundé, who didn't start the game, as Toni predicted, with Eric Garcia at right-back. And then, 94th minute, Lamine Yamal curls in. Lovely goal for the third.
Yeah, they made Lamine a little bit angry. If they hadn't, maybe they'd have got away with the 2-0 defeat. Mallorca on the opener. He obviously came in and scored that brilliant trademark goal, which we're probably going to see so many times this season. We certainly started seeing it increasingly at the end of last season. If you think back, the Inter game, the Clásico Español, I've forgotten the last game of the season now. Was it Villarreal when he scored at home and they lost the last game of the season? I can't remember now. When they won the league, he scored, didn't he? Was that the Villarreal game? But yeah, it's difficult to judge the game really, because obviously once you're playing against 9 men for over 50 minutes, it's difficult to really sort of say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. But I guess the fact that Barca were 2-0 up was promising, the Lamine-Rafinha connection. I think we're going to see a lot of that as well. Lamine is often sort of floating that sort of cross to the back post. Rafinha off the mark, Lamine Yamal off the mark. Good news for Barca that they both scored in Lewandowski's absence, who missed the game through injury. And then, like you say, the second goal probably in that sort of... The second goal, I think, is in the 23rd minute. It's probably sort of 15 minutes in it which changed the game. You get that second goal, which I think... Perhaps without that second goal, and it's impossible to really say, perhaps without that second goal, the red cards don't come, because it sets the tone for the sort of, in the stadium, they're furious with the second goal. The players are obviously feeling wronged, and it just lifts the sort of the aggression, the bite, the tension a little bit. I think, and Hansi Flick said the same. He said that the referee I don't think he said the referee got it wrong, but he certainly said that he would have been aggrieved if he'd have been on the other end of that decision. Not that it was a decision in such, because the referee didn't make the decision. The ball's hit Raiola in the head. He's gone down in the box, clearly not faking it in that moment. And the protocol does say that if it's a head injury like that and the player's gone down, you should stop the game. The ref, I think it's confusing because the ref kind of does seem to put his whistle in his mouth, but he never blows. So the game goes on. Barca are within their right to keep playing. Ferran Torres fires it in. Does he score if there's not that confusion? I'm not sure. Mallorca it's not easy to say Mallorca definitely sort of stopped and didn't play to the whistle. The goalkeeper did seem a little bit flat-footed, but the defence perhaps it was a little bit half-hearted as opposed to full pelt. You can understand why Mallorca are aggrieved. The game should have been stopped, but it wasn't. So then Barca kind of have a moral dilemma, I guess, once they have scored, because it's not something that's actually been talked about after the game, but I saw it talked about sort of during the game on social media and whatnot, about whether the fact that they've been able to score and Mallorca had perhaps half stopped, whether they should let Mallorca score. It didn't ever seem to be an issue sort of during the game. It didn't seem to be something that Barca or Mallorca were asking for or considering. And yeah, it just goes down for me as a poor refereeing. The fact that you can see why Mallorca got confused, because the protocol of someone going down with a head injury, you think the game's been stopped, but just the way the ref sort of had the whistle in his mouth and stuff, they perhaps thought, well, that's it, he's going to blow his whistle, but he didn't. The game went on, and as Flick said, you played to the whistle. Barca did. Great finish by Ferran Torres. Perhaps the keeper doesn't save it anyway, Leo Roman, but he certainly didn't seem to try to save it. I don't know whether that's because he couldn't or whether the fact that Raiola had gone down. And then you've got the 2 red cards, which, like I say, are probably in part a symptom of the sort of fallout to that goal. You've got Manu Morlanes, delighted to see him sent off as a player in your fantasy team, getting sent off for a second yellow card for a clip on Lamine Yamal. It was a second yellow card. There's no complaints about either red card really. It's a clear second yellow. And then the Muriqi red card was... It's quite a strange one, really, because he's gone for the ball with Joan Garcia. Joan Garcia's headed it away, and he's actually studded in Joan Garcia's head. It's a clear red. Well, in the moment you think that's a red card. The ref's shown the yellow card, and you wonder if there's sort of not the balancing of the decisions, but almost how much there's sort of an element of the officials thinking, oh, we feel a bit bad for Mallorca here. Perhaps we were a little bit wrong with the first goal. Not certainly the Morlanes red card, but then to reduce a team to 9 men. I think in any circumstance, whatever the game, whatever the situation of the game, I think if it's the first half and a team's already down to 10 men, I think officials, obviously you have to follow the law, but I think there's a certain sort of reluctance to perhaps give a second red card so soon. Perhaps that was in the thinking with the initial yellow card from the referee, but VAR rightly said, come and have a look at it, had a look at it, and yeah, there was no way he couldn't give Muriqi the red card for that challenge, which, studs in the face of Joan Garcia late to the ball. He had to go really, really high foot. There was absolutely no debate about that. But it was a shame, really, because that kind of... I mean, not from Flick's point of view. He doesn't think that should kill the game. He thinks Barca should, put their foot on Mallorca's throat from there and go on and win 5 or 6-0 and score more goals. But yeah, we had a second half, like I said before, in the heat against 9 men. Mallorca just happy to contain. Barca happy not to have to exert too much in the heat on the first game. And yeah, we didn't get the third goal until the 94th minute. So a good start for Barca. Not too much energy exerted. A 3-0 win. Goals for Rafinha. Goals for Lamine Yamal. And yeah, 3 points.
Would you not say that is actually an ideal first start, like playing against 9 men, so you kind of ease into the season, getting a clean sheet, getting your strikers on the score sheet, all 3 of the starting strikers, and giving Flick some room to demand more from the team, rather than them starting off at winning 6-0 and then going downhill from there?
Yeah, perhaps that's a little bit in Flick's thinking. Perhaps he wasn't really as sort of upset with the 50-60% comment as he wanted. He just wants to keep the players on their toes, and also it is true, like, you can't relax after a win against 9 men. There will obviously be bigger challenges to come, but I think the players know that. That's why I said earlier about Flick's comments. I was surprised he was so sort of critical of the team's intensity, because I thought he could have said, look, I would have liked to see a little bit more, but first game of the season. But there were no buts from Flick, and I guess that's the type of coach we've seen in the first year, and he wants that intensity, he wants goals, he doesn't want them to ever let up, and I guess he wants to use this as the perfect message to get it across at the start of this season, that's what he wants.
Yeah. Well, I'm still in Australia. I haven't seen the full game, so I've only seen highlights of the game, and almost none of the highlights involved debutant Joan Garcia. Did he have anything to do? How do you rate his debut? I saw a clip, actually. It wasn't part of the highlights, but a great pass from him set up a Barca attack.
No, obviously the main moment he was involved in was the red card from Rik, and once Mallorca were down to 9, he had very little to do. There were a couple of, I think, did Mallorca have 2 shots on goal, was it, I think, in the end? But he didn't have much to do. One
shot on target, 4 total shots, 0.2 expected goals. So
very little to do in terms of that game. I think in pre-season he's shown a level of sort of command and control in terms of shot stopping. I'm still not totally convinced with his feet. He probably is a little bit better than Szczesny. I'm not sure, and I'm sure he will get better. Certainly not sort of the goalkeeper with his feet Barca expect, but there is a sort of safety you feel with him at the moment. Whether that will change, whether it will not, it feels like a good signing so far, obviously with everything that's happened, etc. And he's the only goalkeeper at the moment, really, because he was registered on Saturday morning along with Marcus Rashford. Once again, registration day, proving the first game of the season. Barca getting those deals registered after, I think we hadn't spoken. We did speak about Ter Stegen last week, but obviously that the injury to Ter Stegen was only ratified as being long-term by LaLiga. I think it was on Wednesday. Which sort of created his salary space for Joan Garcia to be registered. And then on Friday, the club sold the other 50% of Francisco Trincao's rights to Sporting Clube de Portugal for 11 million euros. And Jules Koundé renewed until 2030, which spreads the amortization payments on his contract, on his transfer fee, the 55 million transfer fee, over another 3 years, which sort of created enough space to get Rashford registered as well. But there's still Szczesny's still not registered, so he wasn't on the bench. Ter Stegen's obviously out injured, so that means Iñaki Peña was still on the bench with Cochin, and Gerard Martin's new contract is still not registered either.
Yeah. And what about Marcus Rashford then, the other debutant who sort of came on in the final part of the game? Did he have much to offer?
Yeah, nada. Came on, like you say, in the second half, but it was at a time when there were no spaces. Even though Barca were playing against 9 men, it was kind of 2 blocks of 8, and it wasn't the best game to come on for your debut. Flick even said that after the game. It wasn't really a game for Marcus, but obviously wanted to get him on. Wanted to get him some minutes in La Liga, give him a chance. Made sense to bring him on, especially with Lewandowski not being available and Ferran Torres starting the game. But yeah.
Yeah, and he came on as a striker, right? Playing in place of Ferran Torres, who came off?
Yeah, he came on for Ferran, actually. Probably a point I should mention. I kind of thought maybe he might come on earlier. Certainly a lot of other people did, because on the brink of half-time, Rafinha did an absolute, I wouldn't say a horror challenge, but just like a pointless challenge, sort of near the halfway line, where he sort of clattered in to the defender with almost like a scissor challenge and got a yellow card. I probably wouldn't say it was enough for a red card, but there were certainly even Barca commentators, Barca fans who said they wouldn't be surprised if it had been a red card. He got a yellow for that. So you thought, especially given the fact Mallorca were down to 9, if you put that sort of tint on it, it's one of those ones where the ref sometimes thinks, or even it up a little bit, Mallorca dancers. But he didn't. He gave him a yellow. And I think that was the right decision, a yellow. But I thought because of that, maybe Rashford would have come on quite early on the left for Rafinha, but he didn't. No, he came on for Ferran in the end, and Rafinha played pretty much most of the game. He just came off late on.
Yeah. So, all in all, pretty good start. And you're going to the next game, right?
Yeah, Levante on Saturday night. First time I've been to Levante's new stadium. Have you been there?
Then I don't know their new stadium. Not the Ciutat de Valencia anymore.
It was renovated in 2020 when they sort of added a lot of new things. It's still the Ciutat de Valencia. I was wrong by saying new, but there was a massive renovation around the COVID time. I think they did a little bit like Madrid did. Rings a bell. I'm not 100% sure. It was definitely around that time, 2020, during COVID. I think during COVID, they played somewhere else. I don't know if I'm inventing this. While they made the changes to the stadium, and it'll be the first time that I've been back since COVID, since it's been renovated.
Yeah, I haven't been since then either. I went probably just before COVID was the last time I went. There's not too much else to talk about from a Barca perspective, is there?
Not in terms of the Mallorca game, because like we say, the key points were the decisions, and then from there, obviously, Flick's take on the game. But yeah, there's not too much to talk about individual performances because of all the factors we've mentioned. Levante will be an interesting one now on Saturday, obviously coming up from Segunda, and always sort of historically it's been a difficult place for Barca to go. I don't think those things always ring true, but there's sort of a psychological element perhaps because this week we'll probably hear about some of those games when Levante have beaten Barca at the Ciutat de Valencia, etc. So yeah, there's not too much going on this week. Obviously a lot of transfer business has been done. We're still pending the registrations, as I said, of Chesney, Gerard Martin. I think they're going to try and get Rooney Balaji registered with the first team, but he is registered with that's a slightly interesting situation. I'm not sure why he didn't go on Saturday, because he is registered with Barça Athletic. I thought he could have gone under that registration, and I read some stories saying Barca wanted him to be registered with the first team to be sure or something. So I'm not completely sure on the Rooney Balaji situation. Then other than that, a couple of exits. Oriol Romeu is still at the club, your old friend from Chelsea. Iñaki Peña still at the club. To be fair, Iñaki Peña leaving would probably create enough space for Chesney's registration to be done. So that's kind of like a no-brainer. I'm surprised we got to August the 18th and Peña's still at the club, given it's so clear that, once Joan Garcia signed, that there was no future for him at Barca, but he's still here. And we'll see what happens with Hector Fort. He wasn't in the squad at the weekend. It looks like Barca, are all in on Eric Garcia as a right back. Like you say, he started there ahead of Koundé, as Toni suggested. He might. I don't think that will be something that's a pattern for the season in terms of big games, but something that we could see quite a bit. And Jofre Torrent came on for a debut as well. I guess is notable from the game on Saturday, his first team debut, and he seems to be I guess this is the interesting thing. He seems to be the backup to Balde at the moment, based on pre-season, and Gerard Martin seems to be sort of in the running as a centre back now, as one of the four centre backs following Inigo Martinez's departure. You've got him and Christensen as the backups, which may be slightly concerning.
Maybe Gerard Martin is kind of like a Flick mascot. He likes him to have him around. He adds stuff to the training sessions. Can play left back. Can play centre back.
Yeah, I've seen some journalists suggesting he's the third choice centre back and that Christensen's the fourth. I find that hard to believe now, but it is true. He had a lot of minutes there on the left side. Quite an interesting profile in terms of home games against perhaps mid to lower table opposition. But it's certainly you wouldn't. And maybe he'll prove a revelation there. He certainly improved last season, to be fair to him. I still doubt whether he's got the credentials to be a regular Barca starter, but perhaps Flick's onto something. Perhaps he could be a good centre-back. You would worry, though, if you had a stretch of games where he was your first-choice centre-back.
Yeah, especially if it involved Champions League games and so on. You wouldn't really want that at all. The one other actual Barca point to talk about, kind of from the Mallorca game, is, of course, this was Lamine Yamal's first competitive game wearing the number 10 shirt, and he scored a goal, set up a goal. It looks like he's not going to have any trouble adjusting to carrying the number 10 on his back.
I don't think a kid who comes into the team at 15 and does what he's done since for Spain and for Barcelona, especially when he grows in big games, I think we've seen he clearly has no problems with pressure or expectations. So I think having the 10 on his back is probably the least of the sort of thoughts on Lamine's mind when you think about some of the other situations or expectations or comparisons or moments in games that he's dealt with. But I think the fact he starts with an assist and a goal is probably important, because that's probably, even though, I mean, assists and goals, I think he had 38, 40-ish. He was over 20 assists, wasn't he, and 15 goals, I think. He was close to 40 goal contributions last season. But because of, what came before him, the generation of, not just even Messi and Ronaldo, but if you look at the numbers Neymar and Suarez were posting in that era, even perhaps Benzema and Bale, I don't know, but those sort of numbers that we've seen, and from strikers in recent years, Lewandowski for Barca and, for Bayern previously, Harry Kane, the amount of goals and assists people have scored is obviously very different to the early sort of 2000s when, 20 goals a season was seen as a good campaign. So there is a demand for Lamine, even though he's 18, to step up and score more goals than he did last season and create more goals than he did last season, even though for me, ridiculous numbers for a 17-year-old. But yeah, he started on that page. I guess the thing with Lamine is we know he can score that wonder goal. That's not really news. What we want to see him do now is take the other chances, because most of his goals are, I'm probably exaggerating slightly, but a good portion of his goals are coming in on his left and whipping it into that corner. Whereas if we see him, we've seen him in one-on-ones, sort of coming in perhaps slightly from the right or whatnot, where he's not as sort of cute with his finishing. So that's one area where you want to see him sort of add goals. We know he can score that goal that he scored on Saturday, but we want to see him add sort of the other goals. That's how he's going to make up the numbers this season. Yeah,
I 100% agree with that. I can't picture like Lamine score a rebound in the box, Lamine being there and volleying home from the rebound, or any kind of goal really that isn't him cutting inside and curling it into the top corner or bottom corner with his left foot.
But he is the most exciting player in the world and the one to watch in Europe this season for me, without a question. There's not a single doubt in my mind.
Yeah, that'll get me through my 20-odd hour return from Australia. The prospect of getting to watch Lamine Yamal live again.
Well, you need to find a stadium to watch him in first.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
But no,
we'll have to see how that develops. Whether Barca we're back at Camp Nou or not. What do you think? If you had to bet now, Camp Nou after the international break or not?
I'm fed up of betting about it. It's in the final phase. We'll see.
The images look quite promising that have come out.
The images do look quite promising. It's funny. I've obviously been in England, and the Everton Stadium is opening next weekend. Is it? I think their second game, and recently there was the Tottenham Stadium, and it's just funny. I spoke to a couple of people here, and they were like, the Barca, even if Barca are back after the international break, like it's still kind of like mad, because it's still a building site and it's still not finished, and it's like the Everton Stadium's needed like 5 test events where they've sort of gradually built it up, and Barca are just like, we're going to carry on building and get back after the international break. I know Madrid was in a similar situation as well, but I guess it's just the little differences between Spain and England. I don't know. I know Liverpool were as well. Bucko will perhaps be able to correct me on this. I'm not quite sure how the Liverpool renovations, because I guess it's different when it's a new stadium as opposed to a revamp. I know Liverpool have revamped quite a lot of their ground over the last sort of 5 years. I don't know how much of a building site that was at times when they were playing games while the revamp was going on. Perhaps Barca's situation isn't that unique, but certainly in terms of some sort of health and safety standards in England, people were sort of quite amazed when a lot of people presumed that Barca would be moving back to the 105,000 seater stadium, which I guess is normal when they're like back to Camp Nou. And I'm like, no, it's probably going to be anywhere from like 30 to 60,000. They're not sure yet. It depends on what they can get the green light for, and building work is going to be ongoing throughout the season.
Yeah, nobody should be too surprised though. The Sagrada Familia, Gaudi died nearly 100 years ago, and they're still building the Sagrada Familia.
It's so close though. It's so close. I always remember the date was supposed to be 2026. I don't know if they're on track to finish in 2026. It looks about as done, if not more done, than Camp Nou recently, I would say.
Yeah. It's nearly there. It's supposed to actually finish next year, which does mark 100 years since his death. But they've already announced there's going to be more bits being sort of built over the next decade following that. But the main building will be finished in theory.
Maybe they can have like a dual opening. I don't know if they can sell that in like a marketing way. Come to Barcelona for the dual opening of the Sagrada Familia. And
bring back Dios for the for the dual opening. Yeah. All right, just quickly to wrap up this pod. Tell me what happened in some of the other games this weekend. We saw Atletico Madrid, who I insisted on putting fourth, lose at Espanyol.
Yeah.
/ Burnley.
That's the big result, really. I mean, it was a bad result for. I think I can't remember if you put Celta Vigo forward. I certainly put Girona forward and Celta Vigo, but I can't remember if you said Celta Vigo.
No, you put them both forward, and I just agreed with you like a sheep.
I couldn't remember if you agreed on both or not, but it was a dreadful. I mean, it's just one game. But it was a dreadful weekend for people who thought they might do well, because they both lost at home. Girona were well beaten by Rayo Vallecano, and who I also tipped to have a struggling... And I still stand by my predictions. I'm not going to change them after one game. I'm going to stick by them. And Celta Vigo were beaten at home by Tony's favourite coach, Jose Bordalas, given a lesson in Bordalas ball. So tough weekend for those out there predictions, but we'll see. I'm still going to give them time. But like you say, the big result, pending Real Madrid playing Osasuna on Tuesday night, came in Barcelona, where there's a new era at Espanyol, new ownership. NFL player JJ Watt was there to watch, and they came from behind to beat Atletico Madrid. It was a funny game, really. Not a lot happened. It was sort of a typical opening game in Spain. Atletico took the lead, a brilliant free kick from Julian Alvarez. Obviously a new era at Atletico. I think they had, I can't remember how many new signings starting now. They had Ruggeri at left back. They had Johnny Cardoso midfield. They had Alex Baena starting. They had, who else did they have starting? There's a few other new signings started. I think they had 5 new signings started and 7 featured because Raspadori also came on. And they led 1-0. But Espanyol almost came back from nothing, really. They were putting a little bit of pressure on, but they weren't really creating too much. And then they equalised from a set play and then won it from just sort of almost a nothing ball into the box late on. And Perimia with sort of, I don't know if it was an amazing header or if it came off his shoulder, but looped into the top corner over Jan Oblak. And Espanyol under shared ownership with Burnley now, which is, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing for me. It's obviously, in terms of this podcast, it's probably a bad thing having my club associated with Espanyol. In terms of sort of like personally, like it's quite nice to have the Burnley link in Barcelona, and the American link as well with Alan Pace, the owner, and JJ Watt as a sort of part owner, the ex-NFL player.
You'll be down CDLC at the Beach Club with Pace and Watt. Yeah,
so there's an element of interest there for ESPN because of the American ownership, because it's shared with Burnley. Obviously, the Premier League is a big traffic driver. So from a work point of view, it's very interesting. From this podcast point of view, I'm not very... It's not the best thing to have Burnley and Espanyol associated together, although... I wouldn't say they're that similar, but there's some quite similar things about them over the last sort of 10, 15 years. If you exclude that... Yo-yo clubs. That Vincent Kompany season, the Vincent Kompany season with Burnley, they probably play quite sort of similar dour, backs to the wall sort of football. They're not very front foot teams, are they? They're not full Getafe. Maybe Burnley were a little bit more Getafe at times under Dyche, but certainly in general, I wouldn't say they're full Getafe, but they're certainly sort of... you kind of have to be to compete with the top teams, don't you? But I would say they're quite sort of similar in terms of style of football. And like you say, they've both yo-yoed sort of down up straight away in the last sort of 4 years. Although Espanyol bucked the trend last year by staying up. Yeah. All right, that's a good roundup of the rest of La Liga, and that is all for today's pod. We'll be back. Who knows when, and who knows if Tony will be back from his holiday? Probably not, because it never ends. Stay positive.